The centerpiece of this plan is that the nation and the city need to stop behaving as separate governments as it relates to certain governing activities within the Allegheny Territory that involve the delivery of essential community services to the Indians and non-Indians who live here. Over the years, we have managed to ignore each other pretty well. Of course, we have separate governments as a matter of structure, but we also have evolved separate systems of service delivery that operate independently and sometimes in conflict with one another. A good example is the always exciting topic of sewage and wastewater treatment. Both the city and the nation have entirely separate sewage and wastewater treatment facilities. The nation's facility, as you know, is brand new. We spent millions of dollars for the sovereign right to treat our own sewage. The city, as we know, does the same thing through its Board of Public Utilities. The nation and the city take much the same approach in other areas of service delivery. Take, for example, law enforcement. Both the nation and the city have their own law enforcement agencies. The city funds a full-time, paid police force, and the nation funds its marshal service. Other areas where the nation and the city provide similar services to their respective service communities include fire protection, emergency medical response, road maintenance, libraries, animal control, and so on. Even though many of these services are paid for exclusively by either the nation or the city government, the services are often delivered in concert with one another to a blended service population. Our marshals in your police department often work together on handling calls. So too with fire protection, which is based on the concept of providing mutual aid. In many ways, our two governments today deliver services that are provided regardless of whether the recipient of those services is an Indian or a non-Indian. When one looks at the same services that are provided by both the nation and the city, ask yourself this question: how much money are we wasting by maintaining two separate systems when it is possible to provide the same measure of services by one system? If the nation and the city pooled its resources to, say, treat sewage or provide for public safety to the residents of the Allegheny Territory, could we each save money? And if we could each save money, could we possibly expand service delivery into areas that are not currently covered? Now is the time to start thinking about whether this is possible and to take immediate action to make it happen. To do that, I propose that the nation and the city create a new governing entity to jointly administer the entirety of the $5 million exclusivity local share payment that the city receives, as well as any additional funds that we might pool together. We might call such an entity something like the Seneca Nation City of Salamanca Joint Development Commission. To some of you, this name may sound familiar. That is because such an entity already exists, or at least used to exist. One element of the 1990 Salamanca lease agreement provided for the establishment of the JDC to invest money into the community for mutual benefit. Both the nation and the city had equal representation on the JDC. Per the agreement, the nation deposited millions of dollars into an escrow account that generated interest for a few years, interest which later served as a pool for expenditure. The money eventually ran out, and since that time, the JDC has lain dormant. I propose that we revive the JDC and expand its governing function to broaden service delivery. To start with, all local share payments that would otherwise be made to the city should be paid into the JDC. The commissioners should be appointed equally by the city and the nation, and they should proceed to evaluate how those monies can be used for lawful and appropriate purposes. Eventually, the JDC should invite both the nation and city governments to consider transferring additional resources now being spent independently for collective service delivery. Whatever becomes the full scope of the JDC's activities is undefined, but should be subject to the agreement of the nation and the city. Why is this a good idea? Because doing so will save both the nation and the city money and set the foundation for expanded service delivery to all the Indian and non-Indian residents of the Allegheny Territory. What the city government has been doing with the local share dollars has, to say the least, not been an investment. Using half of the money for citywide non-casino related tax relief is a questionable practice that has no targeted purpose. Adding 49 people to the payroll may expand services, but it provides virtually no lasting benefit to anyone in our community. It cannot even be said that any of those 49 employees are Seneca, so we are left out of this opportunity once again. The money that the city receives from the state, or to be more correct about it, from the nation, should not simply be a jobs program. Those monies should be used to provide essential services and to make long-term investments in the Allegheny Territory community. As we now see, those dollars may not always exist. We are all best served, though, if they are used for investment purposes. What this plan promotes is the notion that the nation should make local share payments, but that we should jointly decide how those dollars are to be used for the benefit of the residents of the Allegheny Territory. Rather than a jobs program, wouldn't it be nice to have an urgent care facility in Salamanca to serve all Territory residents? Maybe we could even support our own helipad and helicopter so we were never too far away from emergency care. Or monies could be used for improving streets, beautification efforts, or promoting economic development. Maybe things like garbage pickup could even be provided as well. The opportunities for cost savings and service expansion are many, but these opportunities will not materialize unless we commit to working together to make life better for the Indian and non-Indian residents of the Allegheny Territory. I ask you tonight to accept our offer and commit to doing so as soon as possible. To start this discussion, I'd like to share with you a proposed agreement to establish the Joint Development Commission and begin a new era in nation-city relations. Of course, I don't expect that you'll just sign it in its current form, but we should sit down very soon, as soon as you are ready, to negotiate terms and try to come up with our best plan right now to jointly administer these local share dollars for everyone's benefit. Once the terms are set, the nation will then accept the governor's proposal to reimburse the state within 2 weeks of the estimated local share payment being made. If we take this step together, I believe that we will have provided a mechanism to resolve not just our current problem, but also the future of the city. Governments need money to run. The nation does not have a tax base, and so operates businesses to generate revenue. And the city, in a sense, also doesn't have much of a tax base without the revenues that the nation's casino business provides. Pursuing the path I've outlined here will potentially provide a mechanism that will allow community government to function for many years to come. To succeed, we must make some changes, largely changes in our attitudes. For city residents, you have to accept that you cannot govern within our territory on your own. When over 60% of your city revenues comes from the Seneca Nation, that is hardly an independent existence. And for nation citizens and officials, we must also change our outlook of the city. We must stop viewing the city and its officials as a source of hostility and discomfort in our lives. Instead, we must view the city for what it is, a nation asset that requires management and support to help it rediscover a path of prosperity for the benefit of all of us. In closing, I would ask that you give this proposal serious consideration and let us know if you'd like to take us up on our offer. It is important to keep in mind that if the nation prevails in its dispute with the state, that there is no obligation to ever make exclusivity payments again, which means that the city will never see local share dollars again. The proposal we make tonight is the approach that the nation believes is essential to justify making a direct payment to the city. Our goals should be far more ambitious than simply how to turn the lights back on. Things have been changing rapidly since the casino opened, and they are changing around us as we speak. More Senecas are even moving to Salamanca and have an increased interest in the economic and political life of the city. Indeed, one of the city council members, Mike Smith, is a Seneca, and I expect more Senecas will be interested in city public office in the future. We all have a mutual interest in seeing the city survive and redefine itself in the future. And if we continue on the current path, I'm not sure that the city can make it on its own. Together, however, I believe we can shed old grievances and focus on what we can do together to start a new chapter in our joint existence together. Nyawe, and thank you for your time tonight.